Hey everyone, welcome back to Hustle for Time. My name is Roland and this is the second video in a video tutorial series where I'm going to be talking about the 9 things I think you should do after you've set up a local business website. If you haven't got a local business website yet, then check out my previous video. I run you through step by step how to get started, and basically you'll be left with an awesome starting point for your local service business. It should take around 30 to 60 minutes, so if you haven't done that, go do it now. I'll be here waiting. Welcome back. So right now I'm going to take you through the 9 things I think you should do once you've got that set up. It's going to be a fairly mundane video, but basically it'll just be familiarizing yourself with the different components of WordPress, Elementor and Astra, what each of those are responsible for. We'll also be setting up your fonts, typography, color branding, setting up a privacy policy page, installing SSL, some SEO plugins, and of course, setting up a Google Analytics account and hooking that up so you can start tracking your metrics. Now, the first part is just familiarizing yourself. This isn't really something I can go through on a video about, but just poke around, but make sure you do it after the video because you might learn something along the way and just shortcut your learning experience. So let's get started on number 2. I'm just going to take you through the WordPress settings and just explain a little bit about what each part is responsible for. And as I do that, if I think there's anything you should change, I'll let you know. But just keep in mind that I'm doing this from the perspective of a local service business. Now, obviously my website Hustle for Time isn't one of those. So you might see some settings that are slightly different. And if you just want a more succinct rundown of everything, check the description below. I will have an associated blog post with it and you can just cruise through that at your own pace and follow along. This is your WordPress dashboard and you'll be greeted with something largely similar to this if you used the process outlined in the previous video. You might not see everything here just yet, and that's because I've already done what I'm talking about right now. So to start with, let's just go through the settings down here. You can find a lot of the WordPress settings in obviously the settings column here. And let's just start with general. Once you're here, the main things you should look out for are your site title. Just make sure that basically matches your URL, obviously being Hustle for Time. Mine is Hustle for Time. And the tagline should try and represent the essence of your website. So if you were a lawn mowing company in New York, obviously have something like providing the best lawn mowing services in New York. Something to note is this will affect how your pages are sort of presented in Google for the time being, but we can override that and we will be doing that sort of in section 8, I think it is. Your WordPress address URL, site address, don't change these. If yours has HTTP, then make sure you check out step 7 where we install SSL because you really want this to show HTTPS. The S stands for secured and you'll get a nice little lock button in your URL address bar. You can change your email address if you haven't done that already. If you've sort of signed up with, say, your personal one and you want to change that to your business one, you can go ahead, do that now. Go to your new email address and click confirm and it'll go ahead and change that for you. Obviously, set the time zone to the time zone you're in. The date format and time format are largely just personal preferences, same as week starts on. And for the moment, don't worry about cache. The auto update manager, I usually turn these off. And the reason for that is you want control over when you update. There might be times where an auto update happens and you've just, and it breaks something basically. So I usually come through once a month, once a week, and just update things one by one, make sure everything's working, and that way there's no nasty surprises. If you're not ready to launch and you've started with Bluehost, then you can click on for this Bluehost coming page soon. And if someone comes to your website while you've got this turned on, it'll just say, hey, we're not ready yet, check back later. But I'll just leave this off even if you're building your website. Next, let's go down to reading. I will be skipping some of the settings because not all of it is relevant, and you can certainly just have a look and play around at your own leisure. So let's go to reading. Now, if you followed the previous video, these should be already set up, but if not, click a static page and make sure your home page points to the page where you want people to land on if they just type your base URL. And basically the same with your post page. These blog pages to show at most and syndication feeds show the most recent. We'll override these using Elementor later, so it's not really relevant for us and the way we've set up our website. Search engine visibility, make sure that's definitely ticked off. You want Google and other search engines to start crawling your website and knowing you exist. And these follower settings, we'll be using lead capture in a different way, so we certainly won't be asking them to sign up through WordPress and send these default messages, so you can ignore those as well. Next is discussion. So continuing with the theme of local lawn mowing in New York City, if you made blog posts about lawn mowing in New York City, then you could give people the ability to comment on those blog posts. So have a read through these settings, set them up how you like, and just continue on. There's nothing super important on this page. In media settings, I would leave all these default, but for now, just know that they are here. Permalinks. So permalink is your URL structure for the different pages on your website. If yours isn't this post name, I recommend you should put it to this. It's just a great starting site. It doesn't look spammy, it's human readable, and you can have more finite control over this on a post by post basis. So select post name for now and just know that it's here and continue on. Privacy settings. Okay, so obviously being 2020, everyone's aware that they're being tracked on the internet all the time. And a privacy policy page is basically a legal requirement in Europe, US, a lot of places around the world that just lets people read and understand exactly the things you're tracking about them. So if you set up using Astra starter websites, you should have a default one here already. To access this, let's go to pages, all pages, and you should see it here in privacy policy. Click edit. And you can have a read of the default one. Feel free to change it if you want. However, I will say that there's a much easier way to get started with this. Obviously, I won't tell you exactly what to write because I'm not a lawyer. But if you were to type, free privacy policy generator in Google and click around, look for a free one or a cheap one, you can go there. So here's just the first one I found. I'm not saying to use this one, obviously have a look yourself, but I will just run you through it. What you want to say is, yes, you're a business website. A lot of these websites are very similar in their layout and the questions they ask. So yeah, click I'm a business website, I understand, and go continue. Obviously, fill out these things with your business address, your email, where you're located and everything, and it'll continue to ask you questions about you, your business, and the things you track. Now, I'm not going to go through everything step by step here, but I will say that you're going to get asked questions about, your marketing tactics, what information you collect from your users, how do you track them, etc. So answer it to the best of your ability, but for the way I'll be teaching you in the future, answer it like this. So when it asks you what kind of personal information you collect, say email address, first name, phone number, and zip code. The zip code's optional, but I do it just so when they enter in their details, I know that they're in my service area. When it asks you, do you use tracking or analytics tool, click yes. And we're going to be using Google Analytics and Facebook Pixel. Facebook Pixel is again optional, but it's very handy for retargeting and following those people around on Facebook and Instagram. Do you use retargeting services for advertising purposes? Yes, we do. Select all that are applicable, and this will most likely be Google Ads or AdWords. Do you want your privacy policy to include CCPA wording? This is probably where a lot of free generators will make you pay if you click yes here. You might get lucky and find one that doesn't, but look, if you're in the US, this is a legal requirement from the 1st of January in 2020. So click yes, see if you can suck up and pay the fee it requires. It will just shortcut a lot of the work necessary. Do you want your privacy policy to include GDPR wording? Very similar to the CCPA, but instead this time it applies to the EU instead of the US. So, don't click it if you're in the US, click it if you're in the EU. How can users contact you for any questions regarding your privacy policy? Email is an obvious one, but you can also set up a contact page on your website and it's easy for them to make contact there. Truth be told, it's a scary topic of legality, tracking people, should you get a lawyer, should you not? But I'm not going to tell you not to do it. I have one certainly, but the truth is, if they're anything like me, 99.9% of your users, they're not going to go through and comb through your privacy policy. Basically, if I go to a website and even if it doesn't have that pop-up that says, you're being tracked, I just assume they're collecting everything about me. So I think that's just the state of the internet in 2020. So just cover your bases, have a decent starting privacy policy in place when you get started. And look, if you get real serious about your business, you could always get a lawyer to check it over later. Step 3, activate all Astra Pro modules. So if you installed Astra Pro in the previous tutorial, then you're going to be given all these extra options and we're going to add them, we're going to turn them all on now. And if you don't use any, you can always come back later. So head to Appearance and Astra Options and just make sure all these are activated. Now you don't have to activate the bottom few. This is for basically e-commerce sites. This is for selling informational products, etc., etc. So just change the ones where, you might be interested in using. Remember where it lives so that if you don't use any, you could deactivate them later and just speed up your website a little bit. Once that's done, we're going to start setting up our fonts and typography. So obviously the starter sites are a great starting point, but if few people in your local area use the same tactic to get started, then they're all going to look kind of similar. So we want to start giving our brand its own identity. And the way we're going to start doing that is changing the fonts that we use on our website. So I'm not a designer and I don't really know, which typography to use, which ones look good together. But I will show you a little trick that I use to make sure it all looks good. Head over to fontjoy.com. Once you're there, you'll be greeted with this page. And basically what it is this will represent your main heading. This will represent your subheading and this will represent your paragraphs. Now the button up here will generate others completely random that it thinks goes together. And this will be based on this slider here. So if you want a balanced contrast, leave it where it is. You can always say more contrast, click generate and see what it comes up with. Or high contrast, so they're going to look very different. Well, if you want them largely similar, slide it all the way to the right and it's going to pair you with things that are largely similar, obviously. Now, let's say you like this top one for your headers and you want to keep that, but you want to change the others. You could always lock it here on the left-hand side, and I'm just going to change this back to balanced contrast. Click generate, and it's going to keep this one in place while changing the other two. So keep playing around with it, keep generating some, lock it when you find the ones you like, and take note of the names here, here, and here. This uses Google Fonts, and lucky for us, Astra and Elementor come pre-installed with Google Fonts. So once you've found the fonts that you like and you've taken note of the names that they have, we're going to set it up inside Elementor. Now I know I said Astra is responsible for a lot of the way your theme looks, but actually we set this up in Elementor because we use Elementor to build out our pages. So to set up the global defaults, in this case our fonts, what we're going to do is go into a particular page and change the global settings there. So if you just go to all pages find anyone you like. I'm going to use my home page and just click edit with Elementor. Once we're in the page and we're editing it with Elementor, we're going to click the 3 bars up here, go to default fonts, and primary headline is going to be our primary heading font. So go back to Fontjoy, take note of the font you've chosen up here, so Newton in this case, and it's just a simple matter of clicking this, going Newton, hit enter, and you can see that it's now changed. The weight is sort of a different word for the boldness, so change the weight to the one you think is good and hit apply. And for your secondary headline, obviously this is your subheading back in Fontjoy, so in this case I'll change it to prompt. And finally, the body text is your paragraph text you've selected here. So go ahead, punch those in and hit apply. It should automatically change all the pages which have been edited with Elementor. And in the case of using an Astra starter site, that's the case for all of your pages right now. The second part of customizing your brand is obviously the colors. Now, colors we can set up similar to Fontjoy, but instead of going to Fontjoy, we're going to go to coolors.co. Now, once you get to this page, it's very similar to Fontjoy in that it's showing you all these different colors it thinks are complementary. You can hit spacebar to generate random colors, and every single one of these strips has this alternate shades button. If you click that, you can either go darker or you can go lighter. So let's say I like this one. You can drag it to move it somewhere else, obviously. Adjust is similar, but this is sort of fine-tuning the color. And you can click down here to lock the color. So let's say I like this pink color here. I can lock it, hit spacebar, find other ones, maybe change this brown a bit, lock it, and it'll just show you different colors it thinks look good together. Take note of the hexadecimal value down here. This represents the color in HTML. And once you've got the one you like, let's head back to our Elementor page. Similar to setting up the fonts, we're going to click the 3 bars up here, click default colors, and your primary color will most likely be the most left one you chose. And if I change that, for example, to a red, you'll see that my primary headers change. If you change this second one here, your subheadings will change. It also has a list of default palettes here, but go here, put in the hexadecimal values you like for your primary, secondary, text and accent, and hit apply. I will show you quickly where else these also pop up. So let's say I've got a button here. In style, you will now also see your colors here. So that this will be your primary, this will be your secondary, etc., etc. So it just makes it easy when you edit your page in the future to use the brand colors that you've chosen. So once you've done that, hit apply. So step 6, container sizes. As you'll know on pages, if you expand them or you've got a large screen and they go really wide, the text and the content doesn't stretch out all the way. That strip there where the content is contained is called your container size. So to set that up, we're going to have to go to our WordPress dashboard. If you're an Elementor page like this, you can just, this is what you'll normally see. You can click that 3 bars again and go exit to dashboard. We're going to go Astra options, which can be found down here. We're going to click layout options. We'll click on global and container. You'll see the width of the container here. If I was to reduce this, you'll see obviously my container width changed. In 2020, its default value is 1200, but if yours wasn't or you want to change it, set it to what you want and hit publish. Okay, so now we're up to step 7 of installing SSL. SSL is basically an encryption method that browsers use or the internet protocol uses to encrypt whatever you're sending over the internet. That way, if someone was to sort of, intercept the data, they'll just be left with a jumbled message. If you are a local business and you take bookings or personal information online, I really recommend this. Even if you don't do that, I still recommend it because Google's been using this as a ranking factor back in 2014. It's not going to make or break your SEO, but it does sort of give customers that security. It puts a little lock in the icon, and depending which browser you're using, it may even turn it green, just showcasing that it's a secure website. So if you installed it using Bluehost like I showed you in the previous video, then this is already pre-installed, it's activated, and there's not much else you need to do. To check if your website is encrypted with SSL, go to your home page or type in HTTPS ://, type in your URL, and if it doesn't revert back to HTTP, you're all good to go. If you haven't used Bluehost or you've used something else, it might already be HTTPS. So if your website doesn't have SSL installed already, what you're going to have to do is, or the simplest way is going to go to your web host. So, you know, Bluehost in my case could be SiteGround, NetVirtue, or whatever you use. Figure out a way to purchase an SSL certificate. You can just pick the cheapest one. It doesn't really matter. And then what you're going to do is activate it in your dashboard there. And once you've done that, in WordPress, we're going to install a plugin that'll sort of find it and activate it really easily for us. So just recapping, buy an SSL on your hosting platform, activate it, and then go to WordPress and install this plugin. So to install the plugin, we're going to go plugins, add new, and in here, we're just going to type Really Simple SSL. You're going to find this one here, install now. And once that's done, we're going to activate it. Now, I've done this a few times for multiple different clients, and 99, or in my case, even 100% of the time, that's done the trick. So if that's not the case, then it's sort of beyond the scope of this video. I hope it works for you. But I'm not going to go ahead and activate this because mine's already set up with Bluehost. While we're at the plugin page, I'm going to show you step 8, which is installing SEOPress. Now there's many different types of SEO plugins. You might on the internet have seen Yoast SEO, etc. I'm going to be using SEOPress. I really like it. There was an issue with Yoast about 6 months ago where they changed something and everybody was screaming online that it sort of broke their SEO. Ever since then, I've used SEOPress. It's free, and I've been able to do everything I need to using it. We're going to go back to installing a plugin, add new, and we're just going to type in SEOPress. Hit enter. It's going to find it, and you want to install and activate this one here. Once you've done that, you're going to be greeted with this. So go ahead and click on it, and basically you're going to want to get started. It's going to take you through a wizard on installing it. Basically, if you haven't used anything yet, this first page is irrelevant for you. It just wants to import it from other SEO plugins. So we're not going to click anything here. We're going to click next step. So I'm just going to run you through what a few of these settings mean. You can always come back later and change it. So for the separator, this is basically how Google will display your website. I'll just give you an example. And you'll see here that, for example, this first case, Maid Sailors, their separator is the pipe character. This one here, timeout, their separator is a hyphen. It's largely preference, so don't worry too much, but that's what separator means. Your site title, just leave this as it is. This %% site title %% will pull in whatever your site title is from your WordPress settings that we set up previously. Personal organization, definitely go organization if you're a local business. Type in the name. You can give it the URL of your logo. Put in all your social media accounts and hit continue. Once we're here at indexing, just leave everything as their default values if you don't know what you're doing. If you do get someone to do your SEO for you, they might change this, but I would say they'll probably leave it as it is as well. So for now, just make sure that everything is indexed, which means don't click the boxes and hit continue. So once we're here at advanced options, I do like clicking this. It basically just shortens your URL and makes the pages you post structure-wise closer to your home page and may improve your SEO. So I'll click this and hit continue. and you're basically done. So you don't need to pay for it. There's no settings we'll be using just yet where you have to go pro. Okay, and the final step, step 9, setting up your Google Analytics account and hooking it up to your WordPress. So first thing we're going to do is make a Google Analytics account if you haven't done that. So just type Google Analytics in Google and click this one, get started, and go here, google.com analytics. Now leave this page up because it does run you through how to get started. And what you want to do is start for free, register. It's a fairly straightforward process, and I've already done it, so I'm not going to go through it, but I will show you what it looks like once you've done that. So here I am logged into my analytics account. Yours will probably be very similar, just obviously with no numbers just yet. What you want to do is click admin and click property settings and get this tracking ID here. So just copy that, go back to your WordPress dashboard, go to the SEOPress plugin we installed previously and Google Analytics. Enter your tracking ID here, enable Google Analytics tracking for the global site tag. Now you want to exclude the administrator, editor, author, and contributor. That way when you're editing your website, Google doesn't count that as a real user. In the early stages, when you don't have much traffic, it'll just help give you more accurate data. Click Save Changes and head to Tracking. Scroll down and go to Enable Remarketing, Enhance Link Attribution, and Enable Cross-Domain Tracking. The reason I do this is quite often booking platforms require this to be on. That way they can just sort of associate that a booking has been made off a website and refer it back to Google Analytics. Let's go back up to the top, Events, Enable External Link Tracking. Now go to cookie bar GDPR. Now you've probably been to websites where you go there and a little pop-up comes up the bottom and says, hey, you're being tracked. Do you accept the fact that they're going to put cookies on your browser or not? What this will do is basically give you the same pop-up. Now again, this is a legal requirement in some countries, so enable this if you want to, and make sure that all the settings you've added here are reflected on your policy page if you haven't done that. And what you want to do is say request user's consent and type in a message here, and then you can obviously customize how it looks like here. Hit Save Changes. That's basically everything you need to do for Google Analytics at the moment. To check if it works, just open up an incognito browser, go to your website, and you should be able to go here to Analytics, click Home, and if you've opened up a separate browser, go onto your website, you should see one active user right now. So that's basically it for this video. If you do want more information, check out the blog post. It sort of goes through it in a lot more detail. Wasn't the most exciting video and tutorial, but it did help get you familiar with where everything sits. So now you've got the ability to go through and change anything when you need to. I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone that reached out to me from my last video and sort of said, hey, when's the next video coming? It does take up a lot of my time because I've got to write everything out. I'm not super quick at editing videos or writing the blog post either. So it really gave me the motivation to get it out there quicker. Now that I know there's a lot of you watching, I do want to get this content out a lot sooner. And I want to get onto the more interesting stuff of conversion optimization, PPC, capturing leads, and making a sales funnel. So if that's something you're interested in, please hit the subscribe button, stay notified when I make a new video. Reach out to me on my Facebook page if you want to. I also hang around a lot on different subreddits, and obviously you can ask me anything on Facebook and YouTube. So thanks for watching, guys. Stay tuned for the next video. I'll see you soon.